Welcome to the 2717 podcast. I'm Javier, an authentic wedding filmmaker.
And I'm Ashley, a passionate wedding photographer.
We're here to bring Proverbs 27:17 to the wedding industry. As iron sharpens iron,
so one person sharpens another. In this fun series, we're all about sharing experiences and building a community.
Expect heartfelt stories, creative inspiration, and some amazing behind-the-scene moments.
Plus, insights from some truly inspiring guests.
Tune in to connect with us, spark your creativity,
and be a part of a supportive community.
You're listening to the 2717 podcast.
Planning your wedding isn't just about choosing a venue, it's about finding the perfect backdrop for one of the most meaningful moments of your life. That's where Juliana Estate comes in. Nestled in the heart of Lakeland, this elegant estate gives you that classic scenic charm, like a movie set, but it's all yours. Think lush greenery, romantic gardens, and plenty of room for unforgettable moments with the people you love the most. It's a place where every detail feels personal because it's not just a venue. It's where your story begins. See how Juliana Estate can make your wedding day truly yours at julianaestate.com. Thanks for sponsoring today's podcast.
Welcome back, guys. I'm Javi.
And I'm Ashley, and you're listening to the 2717 podcast. Welcome. We have a very special guest today. One of my dear friends, Cheyenne. She's the owner of Bywater Collective here located in Florida, and we're so excited to chat with you. Cheyenne, how are you doing?
Thanks, Ashley. I'm really happy to be here. It's so special to get to sit across from you and Javi and chat all things wedding.
Yay! So many things weddings. We're going to dive right in. How did you get started with photography? Tell us your whole story.
Okay. I got started in photography because of my older sister. She was pregnant with my nephew, my first nephew, and she wanted to have photos taken of her during her pregnancy. And so I hired a photographer for her, someone I trusted, someone I loved, and someone that she had worked with before too. And they were actually my wedding photographer. So she was familiar and they're amazing. And when it came down to it, she messaged me one day and she said, Shy, I can't, thank you so much for this gift, but I'm just uncomfortable and I would really, really love it if you could take the photos, which was really out of left field because I was not a photographer and I did not even have a camera or anything like that. And so my family went in on a little DSLR for me and I flew to Florida. I was living in Georgia at the time. I flew back home to Florida to take her maternity photos, and it was the most special time I'd had in a long time. It was just really beautiful. The pictures were pretty good, actually. Even to this day, I'm like, yeah, okay. They're pretty cute. Yes. And it meant so much to her, and I learned then that photography is about trust, and it wasn't really about my skill, which of course is important, and you work on it so much and you hone it and you do all these things, but at the end of the day, it's just about seeing someone for who they are. And I know my sister and I see her and I adore her. And it was just this amazing aha moment for me that I found something that I really loved. And I'd never intended for it to become a business, but as those things go, you love something and then people recognize that in you if you're lucky. And I had friends start to ask me to take their photos for various things and events, and then next thing I knew I was shooting weddings. So
that is so cool. And I love that you said photography is all about trust and getting to know who you're shooting, and it plays that special aspect into every session of hey, I hear you, I want you to trust me enough to be here with you in this time of your life, whatever that may look like. Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Oh my gosh. So with your style of photography, how would you describe how you shoot?
Well, so I shoot what I call documentary style. That's kind of a hot topic right now. A lot of people claim to shoot documentary style, and I think they're all right. I think that it means something different to everybody. So for me, what it means, a lot of people tend to describe documentary photography as being a fly on the wall or in the background. And I see that and I understand that. And I think that is true a lot of the time. For me personally, documentary style is almost the opposite of that, I would say. For me, what documentary style means is to be in the action in the moment, to integrate myself into what's happening in front of me and to become a part of it, not in an intrusive way, in just like if I'm a part of it, I'm getting what's really happening. So that's how I would describe my style, is to become a part of it, and then the images they don't feel removed. They're an illustration or a documentation, if you will, of what was actually happening.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like you said, like with documentary photography, everyone's like, I just want to be a fly on the wall. And when you think of that specifically, you think of literally like someone up against the wall, like kind of just, okay, I'm going to stand right here and I'm just going to look around and kind of capture what's going on and stuff like that. And I love your perspective of like, yes, you're being a fly on the wall of like not being intrusive with moments.
Yes.
But you're putting yourself within the moment to capture what's truly the emotions that are truly there.
Right.
I love that.
And the real interactions with other people. So a lot of the time what ends up at the end of a wedding day, or I do family sessions as well, what I end up seeing when I'm looking back at photos is sometimes interactions that I had with the guests or that I had with a specific person, but it's a real smile because I was sitting across from them, having a conversation with them, always keeping them in the moment, usually like, tell me about your relationship with so-and-so. How do you know these people? Or are those your kids dancing? This is so fun. Like, how's your dinner? And just talking to people and getting to know how they fit in, and then getting a snapshot of them enjoying that day with their loved ones. It tells a full story that way. And like you said, the fly on the wall is more of like a description of don't let yourself be seen, don't be buzzing in people's ears, don't interrupt, but at the same time, taking yourself away from the outskirts of what's happening and be a part of everything.
I love that. And walk us back to, how did you get to this approach? Like, what was the experiences you had to go through to, figure out the formula for how you document, how you photograph now?
That's such a good question. And honestly, it's not something I've given a lot of thought to, like how I got to this point. It's always been a bit of my style. And I think it may go back to that very first shoot with my sister of, I don't want to make her uncomfortable, even though she's my sister. I'm not going to, I think I credit a lot of who I am as an artist, as a photographer to her. We're very connected in a lot of ways. And I am thinking about her constantly. And when I'm around her, I'm constantly, not catering an environment to her, but I'm just aware. And I think it's because we're so close. But I love her. And I do that with the people that I love. I try to create a comfortable, supportive environment for them when I'm with them. And since she was my first subject as a photographer, I feel like I really attempted that with her. And in doing so, the photos felt real. And like I said, I'm still proud of that shoot today. But I learned so much from that, where I didn't have to tell her what to do. We just kind of hung out and talked, and we put my nephew's nursery together, and we had a cup of coffee together, and she read a book and sat it on her belly, and it was the book she read every day during her pregnancy. And like these things where it was just another day, but it was the day that I got to be there to photograph it happening. And I think it's always been really true for me. I don't think I've looked around at what other people were doing and said, I want to do that. Now, am I inspired by other photographers? Absolutely. And then I do know that there are styles that don't work for me, because I've been inspired by people and thought, can I work this in to documentary? And haven't always used that word either. That's more of like last couple of years. I'm like, yes, that describes it. But when I've tried to do what other people do that I admire, it just falls flat for me. It doesn't feel honest. And so I think I was lucky in the sense that I started out like this, and it's just gotten more natural.
That's awesome. I know for me, it's been like it's been a whole journey and experience of learning, identifying like, hey, what makes me? What makes the way I see things in perspective, Sundial Creative's way per se. And with Ashley too as well. Like we kind of discussed like I hate labels in a sense.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we all have, oh, she's an editorial photographer, documentary photographer style. But at the end of the day, it's really the way that we just see things and view things. I know for me, I just want to remove like, oh, luxury wedding videographer or this or the other. It's like, no, I'm just a wedding filmmaker.
Yeah.
I want to create films that represents your authenticity, that you're authentic, and representing your day, that you can relive it. That'll be timeless for you because it's your own unique story.
Right.
You know, it's captured in an amazing perspective. And so, no, I really love that you mentioned it. Like that's what we would describe it nowadays.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's really the eye that you just had from the beginning.
I love that too.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's how you make your clients feel through how you are and how your work and your art is shown to them. Like, this is their story through your eyes. And, you know, like Javi said, piggybacking of, we have all of these labels, and it's like, no, I just want to document you and your story, whatever that looks like. If you guys do lean a little bit more, like you want me to be hands off and just like you guys have a day at the beach and I come along, or if you do want something a little bit more like high flash in that, you know, favorite restaurant that you guys have, whatever that story looks like to you and how you make them feel is like the most important part. And it's going to last longer than I feel like even the photos sometimes, like how you made them feel during the photos. They're going to look back and be like, oh, my photographer just like really got my vision and like handled our situation, our story with care.
Absolutely does. And that's such a good point. I have many clients that I photograph their wedding day one way. I do in-home sessions another way. I've photographed births. Like, I'm not going to do the same thing at these different important moments in people's lives. But it comes down to that relationship that you've made with them and the trust that you've built. So I've had people who do want that super documentary style for their weddings. But you know what? This year, for their family session, they just really need a good crisp Christmas card. And they call me because they know that I will do what they need me to do. And I'll do it in a way that's caring and loving and supportive. And I know who they are. I know what motivates their kids. I know what snaps the parents out of their funk from the day of work to get settled into a session. And it's because I talk to them and I've gotten to know them. And, you know, that's not true across the board for every client. I don't have the luxury of getting to know everyone over years of time photographing them, but I do put in time ahead of the session to get to know, like, what are you looking for from this photo shoot? I'm there for you. I'm not there for me. These photos aren't for me. They're not for my portfolio. They're not for my Instagram. They're not for my website. They're for you. And if you just need a nice Christmas card with you guys all looking at the camera, I'm happy to do that, but it's going to feel a certain way because it's me who's doing it.
Yeah.
Because that's
so good.
What I bring to the table as a photographer.
Oh, that's so good. How do you approach posing during like just your regular like couples or family sessions?
Yeah. When you say approach, give me what?
Yeah. Like, how do you go about posing to like create those emotions with people that may be a little bit more like nervous in front of the camera, or like how do you guide them through sessions?
Yeah, that's a good question. I keep them moving most of the time. I encourage people to do photo shoots in places that mean something to them, because then as soon as you arrive, there's a story to tell, and there's a story for me to take in, and there's a story for me to insert myself into, if only for an hour. Sometimes it's, my family's been coming. We live in a very touristy area, beautiful beaches, places. The beach, on one hand, it's like, oh, another session at the beach. I hear that a lot from other photographers. It's like, what can you really do? You can do so much at the beach. Ask them, what's your favorite memory on this beach? If this is your first time here, what brought you to this area? What were you looking for as a family or as a couple when you planned your vacation to come here? What other vacations have you been on? Why is this one different? You just find ways to connect with them that sets that hour that you're spending with them apart from every other hour of their day. And I try to keep people moving, keep them engaged, focus on each other. I have a little spiel that I'll give at the start of shoots. It depending on who I'm working with. Am I answering your question?
Yes.
Am I?
Yes.
Okay. It's hard because I'm like oscillating between weddings, couples, families.
Yes. No, absolutely. No, you're doing great.
So couples specifically, I ask about them as a couple. I try to get them to focus on each other most of the time. I'm a lot more silent in couples photos, usually because I'm working with two adults who can entertain themselves. I'm not like, jumping up and down like, oh, look at me. But I'll keep them moving. I will encourage people. I'm not really one to be like, okay, put your hand here, but I take care of my clients. I make sure they look good. I'm not going to let you look weird in a picture. Like, part of my spiel is, and I say this every session because it's true no matter what, the better they look in a photo, the better I look. Like, it's literally my livelihood to make sure that people look good on camera.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of you. I won't let you look bad. I won't let you look awkward. And so that's my promise to you. All I need from you is to be here right now. Just turn off the world, be with each other. The pictures will happen. The posing will happen. Couples naturally fall into shapes and poses and movements with each other because it's what they know.
Yeah.
If I'm directing that, it's something they don't know, and you're going to see it.
Yeah.
Families, I play with kids. I love kids. I keep the kids entertained, and then the parents are having a blast because they're getting to look each other in the eyes for the first time that day, and maybe for the first time in a week, and their kids are having fun, and we're all just having fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
One thing I've been noticing is that everything in the way your approach is very intentional.
Yeah.
And
I would
very
say
like
so.
thought out for the specific reasons of why you're having, whether it be a couple or a family, to be able to carry out the things that you want them to do on camera. What really led to that, like that, all that intentionality in terms of like, hey, like if we're going to do like a beach session, which beach or which area means something to you? Like, how did that come about, that thought process of really just being super intentional? Because I know sometimes we can all get caught up in finding what's convenient for us.
Or aesthetic.
Aesthetic, exactly.
Yeah.
And instead, it sounds very much like you'd like to play into really who the couple is or the family is, and bringing them to moments or to places that really mean something for them. And I love how you said too, like, where if you're posing too much, it's like unnatural movements compared to when they have the full trust with you. Like, how do you build the trust to be able to carry out everything? I think it starts with trust, in my opinion, but I love to hear from
No, it's
you.
hard. And these are all such good questions. Okay, so I'm going to say something. It's going to sound so disingenuous, but I promise it's genuine. And the fact that I just had to say that is going to make people really think I'm being disingenuous, but I'm not. I am like allergic to small talk. Ashley knows me. I cannot have just like how's it going? Oh, good. Nice. That's great. Okay, see you later. Like I can't. It makes me feel icky. It makes me feel uncomfortable when people approach me that way. Like, I'm that person that's oversharing right away, and that's just me. And not in a way to further make people uncomfortable, but in a way to bring people in. And I look at photography like, I can't have small talk with you. I need to have a real conversation in order to make real images of your life. And that's harder with a family with 3 kids who are on vacation. I get that. I'm not trying to, blanket statement, oh, it's so easy. It's not always easy. Sometimes I'm sitting on the ground talking to kids and like my camera's on the ground and the parents are having a side conversation. I'll look back at them and go, we're going over our time, but like we're not, and I'm not advocating for doing free work. But I am saying, like, just know your client and know that if they have little kids, it's going to take the time that little kids deserve you to take with them. I'm probably going off on a tangent, but photography as small talk doesn't work for me. And I like conversation. I like getting to know people. I like investing ahead of the photo shoot. If you're hiring me, you're not hiring me for that hour. You're hiring me for the time that I'm thinking about you constantly leading up to that hour, and the time afterwards when I'm looking at the photos going, that feels real. That was real for them. This is beautiful. They will love this on their fridge. This is going in a frame. That's what you're paying me for. The hour is small. It's the time around where I'm really reading through your responses to my questions that I don't send the same ones to everybody. I will tweak my questionnaire for almost every session because I need different information from different people. I've probably really lost the plot.
No,
Copy.
that's really good, honestly.
No, that was good.
You answered something that it's huge, because what I'm finding out, like the similarities between what you do and even from my own process, is just I'm always intentional about learning who the couple is,
Yeah,
what their story
crucial.
is.
Yeah.
And from the beginning, like the first interaction, each step plays a part
It does.
for me to be able to create something for them.
Mm-hmm.
I now started to tell my couples, right before I ask them about like their story and to share, I tell them like, hey, the way I'm able to create is by getting to know you. The more that you share, the easier it is for me
Yes.
to be invested emotionally into your wedding. And I tell them that this is an emotional transaction at this point.
Yes, and that's really what they're asking of you, isn't it?
Exactly.
At
Like,
the end of it all.
hey, tell their stories for the most part, right? We do all have different,
Yes.
types of couples, but the ones I'm really want to work with is that, where it's like, hey, this is an emotional transaction where you're going to hopefully be vulnerable, share, open up, tell me a little bit about who you guys are. And I'll do the same too as in my process. And the more that they provide, and I always like break it down later on, it's like, hey, each of these steps played a part into your film. The most important part, like all those interactions, I refer back to.
Yeah.
I think about that, especially when you're editing, and for your cases, when you're shooting and you're capturing those in the moment, and then to also then go back and select the images that really resonated, like that's who they actually are.
Yeah. Have you found that since you have started tailoring your conversations that way that you are, and your final product is reflecting that, are you finding that you're attracting more clients that appreciate that and are looking for that in a videographer?
Absolutely. I know probably I'll say at the start of this year, like it's not as refined as it is now, but it was definitely starting to work its way there, where it's like each couple was not appreciating me and how the way I see things and how I create versus them telling me what to do and what to get.
Yes, or referring to other people, other things they've seen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's been the biggest blessing in that sense, because now when I'll have the final consults before the wedding, they'll give me their full trust and say, Javi, I trust you. I know that you're going to create something special.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, wow, like that gives me a lot of freedom to do how I want to organize their film and structure everything. And of course, like there's always the must-haves, and I'm always going to capture those and keep that at the forefront. But in terms of like the element and feel of the film, like I have full creative control, and that feels really nice.
And your recent work is insane. It's so amazing. And I don't know these people at all, but I feel like I do when I look at your videos. And I think that's the highest compliment, and I mean it as one. Like it is, your work is amazing.
I appreciate it. That intentionality really has been shaped. Like I went through this, I'll say this, like creative rut in the summer where I needed to kind of just sit down and identify, okay, what it is that I want to start focusing on the future. And especially if I want to make this a long career, it's like, okay, I got to make sure this thing is tailored to who I am and be authentic to me.
Yeah.
And one of those things I discovered was stop labeling myself into a certain box, in certain niche. It's like, I just want to create films that couples, one, they appreciate me, appreciate the way I see the world, and just create films that are tailored to them and create something that's absolutely special, one of a kind. And that has been really refreshing. And then finding the tools and instruments to help me accomplish that visually has been like, oh, wow, like I'm so excited about this season, because nobody's going to be able to replicate what I do, because it's just the way I see things, the way I do things. But I do believe that in this, in this industry, not everyone's going to have that approach or that mindset. But I think if you're going to do this for a very long time, it's better to play by your rules than by someone else's, and create it where it's like, hey, this is who I am. And it'll be so much easier in the long run, especially creatively, because you're not trying to be something that you're not.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's exhausting.
Very
it's
much.
Exhausting. And it goes back to posing. It's exhausting to be and act and portray something you're not. And people will get tired of it, and you'll get tired of it. And what you were saying about being excited for this season, I think this is the season I've been the most excited for my business ever. And if you told me a year ago that I would feel that way, I was about to hang it up a year ago. I was welcoming my first daughter. I was stepping back. I also do interior design, and I was like really leaning into that. I still am. But with photography, I was ready to just be like, okay, I'm just going to phase out. You know what? This was a good run. I loved it. I will always do this for my friends and family. And then something happened when I had my daughter, and I was like, I can't stop. I can honestly say at this point, like, I don't think I'll ever stop now. Wow. Because I know how important it is. And I know more than ever how important just pressing pause on your life is. If I could go back to every breath she's ever taken and be like, like I would. I mean, it's incredible. And I was ready to step back. And then something happened where I know I said that I've always had this style, and I have. That doesn't mean I've always executed it in the way that I wanted to. I definitely fell into the trap of, I have to make money, so I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do, and just tell me what you want. And I'm a good photographer. I'll do it. I know how to work a camera. I know how to pose a couple. You just tell me, and we'll do that. And it's exhausting. I couldn't keep it up, and I burned out time and time again doing that. And I don't know what it is, but I became a mom, and I was like, I'm only taking jobs that make me feel proud at the end of the day, that I'll be excited to show her, like, look what I did. Look at these pictures I took of this amazing couple and this family and this wedding. Like, your mom made that. I did that. And then also, like, things that are worth it for me to be away from her for any amount of time. And it's, I don't know, as soon as I made that decision, these clients started coming to me that are my dream. I mean, can I indulge for a second?
Yes, please.
I had a client call this week that I got off the phone and I wept because I was like, it's real. There really are people out there that appreciate you and see you and value what you do. And I don't mean putting a price on it, because we didn't even talk price on the phone. We talked on the phone, and I swear to you, this couple had picked out their favorite photos that I had taken. And then they asked me what my favorite photos that I've taken are. And I was so caught off guard that I couldn't even say it. And then I remembered what it was, and and we got into it. But they were not just saying like, oh, I love this picture. They were like reciting my captions to me and saying why they loved it. I don't know. I really hope I get to photograph their wedding, but it was just one of those things where I felt that not just momentum, but like, this is right. This is where I'm meant to be. These are the people I'm meant to be pulling into my circle. And this is so exciting for me. And I love every single one of my couples I've ever worked with on a wedding. I can honestly say that. Like, your vibe attracts your tribe, whatever. I've been really lucky. I've never had a bridezilla. I've never had anyone disrespect me or make me feel any negative way. I've been really fortunate in that way. But talking to this couple and hearing them like see things about my work that I've always hoped would translate was amazing. It was so cool.
I love that question. I mean, as a bride for 2025, like, find it, and being in the wedding industry too, it was so hard finding my photographer. But I love that question of like, I love all of your work that you've posted.
Thank you.
Like, what's your favorite? Like, that is such a beautiful question. I like, because then there's obviously a story behind it. You get to know your photographer. You get to know where their head's at. If it's, I don't know, if it's a couple's photo, then they're more couple oriented. If it's a crazy story of like a behind the scenes moment of like something that happened with the family, they're more family oriented. Like, you get to learn a lot about who that person is. That's a really awesome question.
It really is. That's a deep one.
That's a really deep question.
And it got me communicating to them, like what you were saying, what they're going to learn. And then I didn't ask them I didn't dream that they had a favorite photo of mine. It was such a huge, I was so flattered. And they told me, and it was all the reasons why I love that picture. And I could honestly say like, wait, no, that's my favorite. Like, yes. You know which one it was? It's one that you've said you like.
Oh, is it the grandpa
It's
one?
the grandpa.
I love that
was
one.
Their favorite one.
Please, Cheyenne, please tell the story of this photo because
Okay.
it's one of my faves that you've ever taken ever.
It really was their favorite. And I had told them a different one.
iconic.
And when they said that, I was like, wait, okay, I do love the one I just said, but that's my favorite one. Okay, Kirsten and Scott, shout out, my people. They got married at a venue in Mayaca City called Crooked River Ranch. And at this venue, have you been there, Javi?
I have not.
Okay, so I'm going to paint, set the scene. It's a barn, and upstairs is the bridal suite. But something really cool about this venue is the bridal suite has a door that opens, and the balcony looks down into the reception area. Does that make sense?
Ooh, yep.
So some couples will opt to do their big reveal before they enter upstairs, and everyone is down looking up at them.
Yep.
So it's like a little picture frame of them looking. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Great. So this particular couple did that, Kirsten and Scott, and so I knew they were going to do it. We talked about it beforehand, and I'm down in the crowd, and I'm with all of the friends and family in the reception, waiting for them to come down the stairs, but I know they're about to open the doors up top. And so they do, they open the doors, and there they are, and they're waving down to everybody, and everyone down below looks up, and they're cheering, woo, like it was just such a cool moment. And everyone has their phones out taking pictures of the bride and groom. And I just thought, that was cute. I loved that. I get home, and I'm editing, and I look at this picture, and I'm zooming in, looking at everyone, making sure everyone, looks good, and everyone's like smiling and is happy. And I zoom in on Grandpa, and the reason I knew it was Grandpa is he had his phone on selfie mode. So God love this sweet man who also performed their ceremony and cried through the whole thing. So I'm already like this with Grandpa. I zoom in, and he has the biggest smile on his face, and the phone is like here. So your listeners can't see me, but I'm holding the phone pretty close to my face, and it's just his face filling the whole frame, and he is cheesing like you would not believe looking up at them. And so
Really? It's so adorable.
It's
like
so
trying so hard to take a picture of this couple, and it's on himself.
It's on himself.
Such a king.
And so the photo that I got is of the couple, all of their friends and family looking up at them, cheering for them, but it's from the back because everyone's looking at them. But then they have Grandpa's face right there on his phone. It's just, it's so cute.
It's so cute. I love that
But
photo.
that was their favorite, the couple that just talked to me, it was their favorite photo, and that told me so much about them.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly.
Like, it's not flashy. It's not.
It's like care about the real moments.
You care about it, and they had to read my caption to know what was going on. I don't know. I'm just really excited for 2025 and 2026. I feel like there's a shift happening, and I just feel really lucky. I'm so glad I'm still in the industry.
I think if I feel like what you're describing in a way, it's just like the intentionality that you're putting behind your work. It's maybe the couples you're attracting or the couples that are putting, they're intentional about selecting somebody
Absolutely
that would care for their wedding day and see it the way and has that mindset and mentality.
Yep.
And I think that's one of those things where I've been recognizing this for this wedding season. In the past, I've had maybe see like a few outliers, right? Like a few ones that you'll get there and they'll creatively like give you a lot of juice and keep you inspired. But then this season has felt like, wow, like almost every single one of my couples, like there's something unique about them that I just love, that they bring and that they share with me and they trust. And I'm just so excited to be able to serve them and create something special for them and be just very intentional. Matter of fact, I actually started now for this wedding season is creating a wedding film breakdown and just describing why I select every single, like not every single shot, but like every single moment or sequence part of the film.
And you provide that to your couples?
I give it, I'll send it to them, and that way they can watch it. And so I did the very first one for the Chicago wedding.
That is so cool.
And it was cool to see the couples, like family and friends, just like watch it. Somebody shared on their story, and they're like watching the wedding film breakdown. And I'm like, man, that's cool. And the whole point about that is just showing like, I'm just very intentional by every little moment. So if somebody watches it, doesn't even know it, but if they want to learn more and see like, okay, what was his mindset or approach? Like this is the video to watch, because like it's not about creating something that's cookie cutter. It's creating something that will last them and be authentic and timeless to them. And so showing that behind the scenes process just brings in the couple or the viewers or their family and friends and more about like, wow, like this is how this dude like interpreted their wedding day and how he saw it. And because I'm actively listening to their ceremony, their vows or speeches, and then looking for mannerisms that can support it, and then the visuals as well, and then even the music, the layering, or why did I put it this way together. So just showing that intentionality so that couples who do care for that, who does want a much more curated approach to their wedding film, that they can look back on and be like, wow, like he really represented us very well. Like,
Right. And it's going to be so inspiring to other filmmakers.
very much.
Oh my gosh.
I've gotten DMs and they're like, hey man, like I appreciate you sharing that. I even asked because like the first one was 39 minutes in length. It was pretty long.
Wow.
And I just filmed it, and he watched the whole way through it. He said, you were very intuitive and very, it's like I watched the whole thing and it was just very insightful to see how intentional you are by every little thing.
That's amazing. I can't wait to watch it. That's so cool.
Yeah, so I have to start a new one because I just finished a film. So I'm excited about this one because it's a complete different vibe from Chicago. And then I have a Miami wedding to start on. So every couple really this year is going to have just and it's a cool way for me to look back on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And like think of like, oh, was my thought process. And that really came about just from scrolling on my feed, like seeing things I've made in the past or just looking at photos. I'm like, man, okay, 2021, this was my mindset from this season based on how I created it. So I can remember what my
amazing.
mindset was.
I did something similar recently. I've been going through old work. I redid my website, and like I said, I'm just feeling like really invigorated. And so I've been going back through, and you know, like any other creator, I fell into the trap of posting things that I thought other people wanted to see. And in the last year, I've just been posting things that I'm excited about and that I feel represent my work. And lo and behold, here come the people that I vibe with so well. But the thing that I did that's similar to what you're doing with your video is in captions from an older wedding that I shot that it just sits with me. This wedding was so cool. I was putting like, not really captioning, I guess titling each photo in the carousel.
Yeah.
So I'd have like 10 photos and then a little descriptor of why I took it or what was happening. And something you were saying made me think of something about intentionality behind photo and why it's so important for us as photographers to be really intentional is because videographers, and this is by no means a crutch, you have to be so artistically in tune in so many ways, but you have all these different elements of sound and effects and ambient noise and I don't know, all the things that you do.
Yeah.
You do so many things.
Yeah.
And as photographers, we don't have that. We have the image. And that's why it's so important for us when it's happening to listen. Because if we're not listening, if we're not taking in what's going on, we're capturing what?
Yeah.
You know, it's important for us to take an image that people can look at and almost like if they close their eyes, maybe they could hear it.
Exactly.
You know? So when you were saying that, I was like, oh,
yeah, I've been telling that to Ashley too. It's like the difference between like stills and you know, emotion is just that like your photo has to be able to like finish the story and leave you wondering.
Be like, what happened after this
Exactly.
was taken, or what happened before this was taken, too.
Keep you in like that deep thought process.
Yeah.
And you know, while the video can bring you back, depending what type of style video it is, if it's a documentary, then it's like, all right, it's what happened in that moment. And it just plays with imperfections or perfections. If it's a film, then you know there's a narrative behind it, some type of story element to string you along and to tap into those emotions with, you know, the music, the sound, the visuals, the A-roll, all that good stuff. And where like you guys really have to be intentional about every little still and frame and how to convey that in terms of like from wedding to wedding, especially when you guys have the shot list per se. That's something as a videographer, I don't have to deal with as much. Like,
what's your approach to shot lists,
like
Ashley?
Yeah. Well, my approach to shot lists, I had a PDF that I purchased on Etsy that was kind of like a basic timeline and like had like photographer information and stuff like that. So I have kind of makeshifted that for the way that it best serves me. And during our consult calls, I kind of pull it up and say like, hey, this is my like photography like PDF. Like this is going to have everything in it from like when I'm going to arrive to who your family is name by name. It's going to have your family shot list, because obviously like those are
very important
ones that we're going to get. And then at the end of it, it has like an ultimate shot list for like weddings and stuff. So it's like it was like a like PDF guide. And when I first started in weddings, I used it a little bit, and then like now within my work, I've just like totally deleted it off of the PDF. And I really asked my couples like, hey, what is really important to you that I need to have captured? You know what I mean? Or like what moments are really special to you? And I think it's funny that I get the like, well, I really want the first kiss.
I know.
And I really want our first dance. And I'm like, it's like, yes. And they don't know either. Like, I feel like I find a lot of my couples, I'm like, what would you say like your style is? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know how to like explain it and stuff like that. So we kind of like go through their Pinterest board, and they're like, I really like this and I really like this. So I kind of can like gauge an idea of, what they like and stuff like that. But going back into, those bigger moments, like how I shoot and how I take in every wedding day is like with intention and care. And so,
and it shows.
And it's important to like know those things, because if that first dance is really important to you, or you're doing something super special in it or something, like I want to know those things so that I are extra intentional with those moments, if that makes sense. So kind of guiding them through that, I feel like is really important, because some couples really don't know, you know what I mean? I ask them that question and they're like, yeah, the first, like, those are all like, yeah, I'm going to be there. Like, of course I'm going to get that shot, you know what I mean? Or like try my best to, you know what I mean? You never know with officiants. I feel like sometimes they're like, kiss, and I'm like on the side and I'm like, oh, okay, wait. But those are moments that are like, to us are like, well, yeah,
of course.
But I mean, I feel like that's all comes with, teaching your couples as well, like educating them on that aspect of things of like, yeah, but like, who's making your bouquet? Is it someone special to you? Who's doing the signage? Who's like, why is your first look with your dad so important? Or like stuff like to you and stuff like that, learning those more meaningful moments to then just shift your approach to each couple. That kind of makes sense.
It's so easy to take those more traditional moments and just be like, yeah, obviously I'm going to get those. Yeah. But when you take it the next step to say, okay, why was that the one thing that came to mind when I said, what do you want me to take? Like, what's most important to you about this day?
Exactly.
Because a lot of people, they're just saying what they think we want to hear.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so good.
Or they haven't been to a wedding before and they're just saying what they think they're supposed to say. But if you ask the question, why is the first look with your dad so important to you? They're going to tell you. Yeah. And it's going to hit, Yeah.
Exactly.
I was going to say something else, but I lost it. It'll come to me. Maybe.
Yeah. I think that's really amazing that you have him. And I think that it's really beautiful that all of us have a really unique eye. And I've always said that about being in the creative industry, is everyone has something to give and everyone's going to see the world differently. And, it's really great when you have someone focused on the main event, and then you have someone who's capturing little moments. And we've talked about this because we worked a wedding together doing video, and that's huge in video too, of like capturing all of these different perspectives, even if you are one person. Capturing like 5-second clips here, and then I'm going to move a little closer to these people, and then I'm going to get a wide shot of everybody, and then like clipping it all together into like creating the full picture. So like when toasts are happening, capturing the couple and their reaction to the toast, and then the person giving the toast, and then the people cheersing at the end and their reactions. It's just so important to have multiple perspectives, and I think that's really beautiful, and why it's so important to have second shooters, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything you just said. I was joking with you before about how I've like changed my approach to second shooting, and I really haven't changed it. But over the last year or two, we've had a few weddings that we've both agreed at the end of the day, this might have been more effective with just one photographer, because they're smaller, and not just smaller like the amount of people, but it's just a smaller feeling. It's more, I know intimate is thrown around a lot in our industry, intimate weddings, but some of these have been just so quiet and intimate.
Yeah.
And there's one that comes into mind specifically where the couple insisted on having a second shooter. Totally fine. If you ever say, I know it goes against like your recommendation, but I want a second shooter, done. He's there, or, you know, the second shooter of our choice is there. But I've had a few weddings where it is just a little bit more familial. And that's actually the clientele that I'm really going for now, which is like backyard weddings, at-home weddings, weddings that feel more like a get-together, a reunion of sorts, dinner parties, things like that. And sometimes having that extra perspective is absolutely key. And sometimes having just one less moving part might be the key.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you at all.
So at this point now, a second shooter is included in all of our packages no matter what. But we talk about it, and if we come to the conclusion, you know what, I don't think you need two people there, all right, then two people don't, only one person comes. It's not an add-on, and it's not something you take off. It's just based on whether or not it's the right thing for your wedding. And I feel really good about that. I feel like that's where I've been building to with our offerings, is we can offer this as a husband and wife team, or my team of second shooters that I bring in on occasion. I have that for you as a resource or as a perk. If you feel it's a perk, if it's the right thing to complete your wedding day, that is available to you. But by no means do I think it's necessary for every wedding. And sometimes I actually think it's the wrong thing.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. I think that with those more intimate backyard weddings, they're so, like you said, like just a gathering. We're just getting together and it's the closest family. And having one less person that they need to know there, and having just like this random technology contraption in their face. Okay, this is you, and then this is you also taking my picture from 5 million different angles and stuff like that can be just like too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
Especially when, I mean, I say that to my couples all the time, like when they're like, do I need a second shooter? I'm like, I always recommend one. But also if you don't, I'm really good at being everywhere at once.
Yeah.
So.
And I shot solo for nearly 5 years before Chase came on. So I did solo weddings for a long time, and I'm comfortable that way. And then on the flip side of that, there are some weddings where I'm going to be like, listen, you have to have a second shooter. It's built in, and I have the perfect person. And if it's not Chase, I still have the perfect person, and I will handpick someone for your wedding day who I work well with and who's going to make it perfect for you. So I just think it really depends on the wedding.
Agree.
So what are some key moments or emotions or things that you look for going into a wedding day to help like document a full story?
So I can't honestly say that there's like something specific that I look for. What I will say is I try to adopt the perspective of all different people throughout the day. So I will shoot from the perspective of me, an outsider, photographing this gorgeous event. I will photograph from the perspective of the mother watching her daughter or her son get married. I will photograph from the perspective of the person getting married, and I will see the day through their eyes, as overwhelming, emotional, as special, and like all-encompassing as it is. I will look at it through the eyes of the flower girl with all this busyness and all this hustle and bustle and the big pretty dresses and why is everyone going crazy? What's happening? I'll look at it through the eyes of the college best friend. You know, everybody. I try to see who's here, who means what. That goes into talking to the couple ahead of time. Like, tell me about your friends. Tell me about your family. Tell me how you guys met. What's the story? And then I just remember all those things, and I listen to what's being said throughout the day. And if I see the flower girl talking to someone about how pretty the bride is, I'll like look over and be like, wow, she's so pretty. And then take that photo You know, like just,
Yes.
it's not about what's happening. I mean, it is about what's happening, but it's about how it's being seen by everyone who's there.
Yeah.
And that's what I look for, is how are people reacting? How are they emoting? What, not just what is playing out in front of me, but what is playing out in front of them, and what does it
Right.
mean to those people, because they're the ones who matter here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Oh, I love that perspective.
that's my answer.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it. And honestly, I really wanted to ask this question too as well. How has faith played a role in your photography, in your business, and the way you serve your couples?
It's been a journey, definitely. And it's ever present. It's more present now than it ever has been. I'm in a really beautiful place with God right now, and I feel really fortunate to be able to say that. And I feel like he has been chasing me, and it's like, and I haven't been playing hard to get, and I still feel like he's chasing. Like, I feel like I'm right here, and he's still like more, and I'm like, okay, you know. With my work, I try, and I feel like I do, in most days, see people the way God does. I really try to. I really love people.
People are the best.
People are the best. This is so silly, but my daughter's really into Ratatouille right now.
Oh, as she should be.
Right? And there's a part, I'm going to mess it up, but he says, the little rat says, I know I'm supposed to hate humans, but just look at them. Look at how magical they are. Look at everything they do. Look at what they do with something as simple as cooking. And he just lists all these things that humans do that are so amazing. And I love that saying. And, you know, a lot of things have been happening in the world lately, and it's so easy well, it's not easy, it's devastating to not adopt that idea. But humans are amazing. And on a wedding day, I mean, God is all over that day, all over it. And vows, I mean, I don't know. You guys know.
Yeah.
Faith has played such a huge part in my life as a business owner, as a wife in business with her husband, now as a mom. And I think I don't want to say that it, like, I don't want it to sound like it's something that is a tool for my business, because it's not. Maybe it should be, now that I'm saying that. But it's more of just like an undercurrent. And it's coming more and more to the surface because, like I said, God's like really out to link arms with me right now. And I love that. But I think it's all about just showing up somewhere and looking out and seeing, like, this is a day that is very blessed. These are people who are very blessed. And we're all just doing our best right now. And we're all leading such heavy, complicated lives. And I'm really moved by that sentiment at the moment. And even more so moved by the fact that he knows all about it. And I might not. I'm just going to learn a little bit in this day, and that feels so... It's like I'm getting to feel a little bit of what God feels when I get to know somebody in this such an intimate way. I don't know. I'm being kind of crazy right now. I'm saying kind of crazy things, but...
No, like, you're not. I love it.
I feel like weddings especially, you're getting to see parts of people that are reserved for their people.
Yeah.
And that's what
so good.
God gets. Like, he gets that part of people.
And every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Whether they give it to him or not. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
And we're
That's
getting
so
a
good.
little bit of that. And that's really something. And then we're getting to say, and now you get to have it back. Like, you gave it to me for a moment, and I took a photograph of it, and I want you to look at it forever and know that, like, that was you showing me a part of yourself that not everyone gets to see, and now you get to see it. And it's just like this, such a beautiful transaction.
I agree on that. That's huge, and that comes. It hits me with the trust too as well. Like couples would have, because you understanding that, like how you value that, how you see that. Like for all my couples now for that I booked up this coming year, like one of the things is a requirement really in my process is that I'm miking up the bride and groom, like all day long throughout the wedding day. Like without that, it really becomes hard to find those genuine moments, to tell those genuine stories. And so having that trust and having that, like letting me in there, even though I'm not listening during the day of the wedding or anything, far from it. And in terms when it comes to editing though, that's when I'm like in my quiet place, I'm focusing and I'm giving my all and opening my ears and listening and looking for everything I can get to be able to tell a story for them. And I always tell them too, is like, let's say if it's something that maybe doesn't fit into the storyline or it's not meant for whatever, to share with the world, it's like, okay, I still have these moments preserved that I'll send to you guys separately. That way you guys can look back at it and rejoice and have that memory.
Preserved. I love that word.
Exactly. And I feel so blessed in that sense because like, hey, you guys are letting me in and I appreciate it. Like you said, not everybody gets to experience the couple or even their family and friends in that manner, right? Because everyone presents themselves differently,
right?
And so, but when that mic is attached to them and they're going from, you know, they can go to grandma and grandma's saying, "I remember when you were a little girl," and or you know, with the groom and his dad, like, "Hey, like, you know, you're stepping into a new chapter. I'm very proud of you." Like just hearing those little things like that is huge, and you get to preserve that, and they get to hear it and see it and relive that aspect of that day.
That's no small thing.
No, not at all. And that's why I rejoice in what I get to do. I always like faith always plays a part for me. And it's like, I was praying this year. It's like, God, I really don't know what these next 10 years are going to look like for me. And I was like, man, like, am I going to call it quits? Because I was feeling that way in that manner myself. I was like, is the end of 2025 it for me?
Really?
And I was really, really thinking hard and heavy. I was like, and then it just came like, hey, you know what? Like, nope, I still want you here.
Yeah.
It's not time, but I'm going to give you some vision and some other things to start building, working towards and to add on to it. Because you're not only called to do these wedding films, but I know that what we're doing here with 2717 and our podcast, it's like, hey, like, we want you to continue to help others, you know, share these experiences, talk about your faith, talk about the weddings and your approach, and become a platform for the unknown. And so it's like, oh man, like, all right, I'm gonna listen. And there's something else that you also gave me that I'm working on too as well. And it's like, okay, it's a lot to do, one person to do, but I know it's a mission that you've called me. And so I know you'll send the people there to help me and everything else. And it's been a real big blessing and eye opener this year for me, and realizing that has transformed the way I see my business. And it's not like one of those easy things. It's like, oh wow, this is, once you do that, everything's going to change for you. And it's going through that refinery process, you know, and figuring out, being super intentional. I think that's the one thing I really learned. It's like, okay, you got to plant good seeds, not every once in a while, not every single day. Your actions count. You know, this time here on earth is very limited. And so, and I just take it back to day by day rather than looking at what's the next 10 years going to be like.
Right.
And so with that, like, I already know if every single day I can plant a good seed, intentional with my couples, the vendors, with my wife and family to sustain this, as, you know, longevity wise, that when it comes times for a harvest, it's going to be a good one, you know, and it'll be not just, you know, everyone thinks financially, but no, like the love of your family, the love of God and everything else.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's so good. And like, speaking for myself, I've been in a really hard season of like grief this past year. And I feel like that has really like impacted my business because I do see people so much differently, and like how time can be so limited and how we have to really take steps back. And now I take even more care of my couple's families during wedding days, like, because I know how much my family means to me, and like really emulating that. So that's been something that's like really worked into my business, and like just realizing that like God has his hand over everything. And even though I'm going through hard seasons of grief, people are around, God's around, and he's celebrating. And there's things that are happening that are really beautiful. And there's some things that are hard seasons, but like he has his hand on everything.
Yes.
You know, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense.
So, yeah, I mean, never mind. I won't go there.
You sure?
Yeah, no, I'm sure. It's dark.
Okay.
I'm here for it.
No, it's okay. It's I was just gonna say that like we don't have to put this in obviously, but like just because it is really dark and I don't want to go there. But the day that my papa had passed, I worked a wedding that day. He had passed that night, and I woke up in the morning and had to go work a 12-hour wedding day, 10-hour wedding day, and just having to be like, okay, I'm in the mindset of I'm here for this couple. Like my whole world just like shattered in front of my eyes, and like I had to go and put on I needed Jesus that day so hard. I was like, Lord, I need you on this day, and every day, but I need you really hard right now. And you know, but even being in that environment of like, hey, my life might be in shambles at this moment, like the Lord is here celebrating, and he's rejoicing, and there's so many people here that are, and it's so filled with love. Like it's such a day that's just so filled with love, and it really distracted me and was like, okay, like this is life, and this life's beautiful. It's really sad, but it's really happy all at the same time.
I know.
And it might have felt like a distraction, but I feel like grief and loss, it goes hand in hand with things like weddings and births of children, and all these things. And not to sound like too woo-woo, but I bet you were the best photographer for them that day. Not necessarily, like, not just like your product, but I bet you saw the world really different that day, and in a way that only you could. And you, like you said, you give special attention to your families, and like, this is super personal, but we may or may not put this in, I don't know, but I've photographed like women when they're pregnant knowing that they've had a loss, and it might not be my specific loss, but also I had a hard time getting pregnant. And so photographing someone who's pregnant, knowing how like the gravity of that is necessary. Photographing a wedding and seeing family photos. I hear photographers all the time say, ugh, family photos, I just have to get through family photos. And I get it. I've gotten lists like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just a lot to orchestrate, especially when you have a photographer like me who's not, like, that's not really what I do. And if there's a huch family list, I'm saying we need a second shooter because it's what Chase does. But
like said, I will be a cocktail hour.
No, he orchestrates it, and but those family photos, they are so important. And I would never tell someone like your list is too long. No, it's not. I mean, praise God, you have so many family here for you, showing up for you on this day, that are like still here. And I don't feel like people get that until you've gone through a loss. Or maybe they do and they're a special person. But I mean, father-daughter dances. I lost my dad when I was young, and Chase and I make eyes across the wedding every time he's like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not. And that's why I'm the right person for this right now, because I'm watching this, and I know that if it were me, I would be memorizing every bit of that moment. And so I'm going to do it for her because it goes by so fast. And my sister lost her husband. So on wedding days, I know if it were my sister, she would be memorizing all of it, and she can't. So I'm going to for this person, it's like we're doing it for those people because it's all going so fast. And when you've lost a person, or a season of life has gone by, or just whatever it is, you know how important that little click of a shutter, what comes from that, how just sacred it can be. And so I hate that you had to work that wedding. I hate it. But I can bet your work is probably incredible because you feel things that you didn't feel before. And they're things that people feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like as we grow older and grow in so many different stages of our life and go through different stages of our life, I mean, like, not that Javi and I have a huge age gap, but we do have an age gap. And like, I see things differently, and he has a family, like, and kids, and he takes that into wedding days. I'm sorry, I'm speaking for you, but we've talked about it. And he takes that into wedding days, and I just know that when I have kids, like, I will see like all the children at the wedding so differently, and like picture like my kids getting married, and like I feel like that's just as you grow with life, your perspectives change, and as you grow and mature, your outlook on life changes. And as creatives, it's really beautiful to capture what a beautiful world we have, and how beautiful life is, and how short it is,
and that we're still finding things to celebrate.
Yeah, that's huge. I know when I found out I was gonna have a little girl, I was I started to ask all the fathers of the bride, and asking them, it's like, hey, what's any words of wisdom? I have a little girl, and at the time it was like she's on her way, and now it's like she's a year and a half old, and it's like, what are any words of wisdom? And I've gotten like really cool responses. Some were giving me like financial strategies on how to prepare for this day, for their wedding day financially. Others has been like, just be present in every single moment. Don't miss those moments, no matter how big or how small. Just be there. And that's huge. So, and I just love it. It just been so insightful from every single father, just giving me some words of wisdom. And I asked for it, and I appreciate them. And it's like, I'm like, man, I can only imagine what my moment with my daughter is going to be when that time comes. And I look forward to that. And it really gives a lot of perspectives and allows me to film that moment and just like, hey, like, let's not speed this thing up.
Right.
Let's let it play out as it should, because it's one of those moments that they won't get back in that moment, whether it's your first daughter or your middle child daughter or the youngest. Like, every one of those moments means something. And so it's so important for me to like, hey, have your moment. Don't feel rushed. Enjoy it.
Don't cut your song.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Because it can go
that
by.
is so huge. I hear that
Yeah.
all the time, where they're like, I don't want to do a ton of dancing and stuff like that. And in the moment when you're talking to them, you're like, I get it. And maybe you don't like the center of attention, and like, I don't know. And I'm talking to them, I'm like, yeah, I get it. And then like the dance happens, and I'm like, oh,
It's over.
Yeah.
I said this to Javi earlier today. I was like, the things I'm going to be a wreck with my dad, like at our first dance and during our first look. And I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to want to. And those are some of my favorite photos that I capture on wedding days too, are like brides and their dads just like full breakdown and like so just like clenched onto them, and with the song, and that's when I cry the most. I feel like is during those moments. It's just the most beautiful.
Definitely.
And even like tapping into what you said of like, you told me that a while ago that you do that, and we've worked weddings where you've done that, and I wouldn't think that way because I don't have kids yet, and I don't have that perspective on my life yet, but that is a great way to get to know the family and invoke that emotion. So now I take that into wedding days. I'm always like, are you so excited? Do you have any other daughters? Like, is this your first? Like, I take those questions that you ask too, because it is so, it just helps you get to know them and helps them be more at ease. And like, also then just like, this is my first daughter getting married, and I'm about to see her. Like, invoke those like, wow.
Exactly. Those
moments.
feelings there. I had one wedding where the father of the bride, he was just very like, he just had like a macho man type of look to him and everything. And I asked him the question, and he's like, I'm just excited. And like, he didn't really show too much emotion or anything, but when it came down to the first look, he just broke down completely. And when he saw his little girl, I was just like, oh man, like, oh,
Yeah.
it hits hard. I was just I wear headsets, so with my second, I was just like, man, wow, he just broke down. Like, we didn't see it coming, and we just loved it. It was like, oh man, this is some real emotions. And so, it's a beautiful thing to witness, because again, the purpose of a wedding is, they're starting their own families together, their own union. Yeah. They're all coming together, and it's still daddy's little girl no matter what. But you still gotta let her go. She gotta go do her own thing now. So I know when that time comes for me, that's gonna be an adjustment for sure.
Yeah. Well, in that moment you're just describing, Javi, where the dad broke down, like that's one of those moments where it's like, who else has seen him like this?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a holy moment.
Yes.
And you were there.
Oh yeah, I love what I get to do, because I find so much fulfillment, because I call myself like I'm VIP, honestly, throughout the wedding day. Sure, I'm capturing everything, but like I got this camera and it takes me into a whole bunch of different places and allows me to capture those intimate moments, those real genuine moments, meet amazing people from all over the world, travel, and I'm so blessed that like this is the calling that God gave me, and has allowed it to bear fruit and still be doing this and finding purpose in it too as well. It's a beautiful thing. And I think that's the main reason where just, if people always have the mentality of just like, I'm just going to get paid, get a paycheck to do your thing, you're not going to last in this.
No way.
And there may be some that like, sure, they'll treat like a business, they'll get paid and great, but it's like, there's no real fulfillment in that, and it's about being intentional and finding that fulfillment and really making that impact. And ultimately that elevates all of us that who's in this profession, and just sets the standard for what we do. Do you have any favorite Bible verse?
Yes. My favorite Bible verse is Isaiah 48. It's, the grass may wither and the flowers may fade, but the word of our God lasts forever. That's my favorite one. It's just one that comes to me all the time. It was one of the first ones I ever memorized. I didn't become a Christian until I was a senior in high school, and I wasn't raised in church or anything. And so that was one of the verses that just stood out to me. It was simple, but not simple at all. And yeah, that's it. I just love that verse.
Yeah, simple but means the world.
But it means everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it even relates, I feel like, to wedding days too. Like, the flowers are going to die, the cake's going to get eaten.
Oh my gosh.
Your photos, and like, also like, the Lord is always present, because that's inevitably what the day is you're getting married under God. Like, this union is together under God. So like, the union is going to last forever, but everything about the day is going to fade into photos and memories.
That's true.
So I love that.
I hadn't connected it in that way, but yes, it's very true. And I think about it as like, God, even the things that God made will go away.
Yeah.
But his promises won't.
Absolutely.
So the tangible things, they don't last.
Yeah.
But the things, and not to say that we are God or anything, but the things you produce, and even with like photography and work and everything, they are important and they matter and they make the world beautiful, but it's like your word is what matters.
Yeah.
And who you are and your being and the promises that you keep are what makes you godly.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Do you have anything, wrapping everything up, do you have any tips for any like people that want to start a photography business or want to shoot in a documentary style or anything like that?
Tips, huh?
Tips.
Tips, no.
Or advice.
Like a philosophy, I suppose, and I've spoken on this before. And I think you and I have talked about it. The Beggar's Bowl. Have you heard of the Beggar's Bowl? Beggar's Bowl.
Yeah.
Sorry. The Beggar's Bowl. It's this philosophy of sort of keeping your hands open. It's to go into a space, and even though you are coming with nothing, like no preconceived notions, no opinions, no judgments, not to say you don't bring anything to the table, but you don't really have anything to offer in a sense. And then looking around and taking in what people are willing to give to you, no matter what it is. Your bowl is more filled than it was when you walked in. It's to like empty yourself and to come in and whatever anyone was willing to give to you, to accept it, and to do what you can with it and to turn it into something beautiful. And especially on wedding days, like, you don't know what you're walking into. You can do all the preparations in the world, and every wedding is so uniquely different, so wildly different. The people you work with, down to, the venues, the vendors, whatever it is, people's stories, people's personalities, how they move through a space, how you move that day. It's all different no matter what. You can't replicate it. And if you empty yourself up and you go in and you hold your hands out and someone, gives you an anecdote, or they give you an expression, or they drop in a line of advice, or whatever it is, and you can take it and look at it and go, treasure. Like, this is everything I need, because I came in here with nothing, and I'm leaving here with all of this, and I'm going to use all these little things to tell a story. And it's this idea that it doesn't take much at all to fill your bowl, to fill your cup. If you go in with it empty, every little bit counts. If you go into it with a full, there's no room for anyone to put anything in. If you go into it with this plan and this list of poses and this list of shots and this formula, your bowl is already overflowing and you're no longer receiving. You might be pouring things out, and there's a beauty to that too. But for me and my philosophy as a photographer, I'm looking to receive so that then I can turn it into something to give back. And the beggar's bowl is something I think about constantly as a photographer, and just in my everyday life, especially on those bad or harder days where I already feel empty and things feel bad. And, we all have those days where things just don't feel good and it's hard to see the beauty. And that happens even to wedding photographers. And if I go into it knowing that every little bit is so beautiful and it's so sacred and someone is giving it to me as a gift, it's treasure. And that's my philosophy, especially with documentary, being able to see the mundane as an overflowing gift and to present it back to them in that way.
Yeah.
Love it.
I love it. Cheyenne, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and thank you
you
for just being vulnerable with us and just giving us so much knowledge, and we just are so thankful for you.
Thank
you
you guys
so much
for having me. It's so nice. It's so flattering and so sweet, and for you to take a genuine interest in me as someone in your industry is really meaningful to me, and I thank you for having me.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely.
Where can they find you?
You can find me at Bywater Collective is my Instagram, and then my website is www.bywater.us, because that .com was too expensive.
He said, couldn't be me.
Couldn't be me.
Javi, where can they find you?
At sundial.creatives and also at sundialcreatives.com.
And you can find me at Ashley Jade Photography LLC on Instagram and TikTok, and also on my website. And you can find us at the 2717 podcast, 27 the number 17 spelled out, on Instagram and TikTok, and then 2717 podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen. But we like that you're here, so thank you so much, and subscribe, comment, like, all of the things, and we can't wait to talk to you guys next time. Bye.
What a pro.